finally free. Warning, self-harm. I felt, quote-unquote, wrong from as young as I can remember. The way I interacted with people, the way I felt, the way I looked, all of it. I was an odd child who grew up into a more noticeable odd teenager. The first time I found myself online in form, I felt a connection. I'd stumbled in accident and discovered a digital home for people just like me. People who felt, quote unquote, wrong. People who didn't fit in. I found myself running home from school with the pressing of the world bursting out of my skull to find my refuge in this new community. We were talking about our days and how we didn't fit in. It was more than an online format. These were sibling connection to my spirit, bound by an undefiable darkness and understanding. In my depression, to never go without this lifetime, I stole a phone from a girl whose school backpack. I never got caught stealing it, which almost justified that it was just meant to be mine in the first place. I saved money to buy a new SIM card with as much data and minutes as I could afford, so I could keep connection to my safe haven. That's when I met her, Sophia. Sophia and I connected as one spirit sparking through the night. The communication was just consistent as our pulses developed into the hidden chamber of our being and finding our innermost secrets to share only with each other. My life was nothing but my time connecting with Sophia and my time wanting to connect with her again. Every feeling and thought I had, she told me before I even felt it, enough to express it. There were moments when I wondered if she could read my mind. I was not afraid when I realized I was in love with her. I didn't need to tell her. I didn't need her to tell me it back. I just knew it could be true. The students at school said they were quote-unquote worried and called my mom a woman more concerned about appearances than understanding. It didn't take much before I decided to abandon both packing a bag and taking anything I may need to start this new chapter in my life, far away from the misery and restraint of my existence. With Sophia's guidance, I found refuge in a decaying house as an expression of my love. I painted the walls with pools of purple and red, filling the house with everything that represented the freedom me and Sophia would experience together. I was desperate for her to join me, but she'd only laugh and say it would come all in time. Soon enough, Sophia shared with me her etherical connections. She revealed her unique ability to bridge the gap to the spirit world, towing the line between the living and dead. Her words reflected me as she spoke about entides beyond our reality, entides that were drawn to people like me, people with refractory souls and hidden pain beyond understanding. She spoke of a spectacular realm intertwined with our own, a place where people like me could feel ease. Her words held me captive. I listened to her stories of whisper voices in the darkness and shadow figures that danced at the periphery of vision. I found myself assimilating, drawn to the replicas by the idea of this otherworldly connection. No matter how unsettling her tales were, I would always be drawn in deeper and deeper. The more she said, the more I understood. As our connection grew, Sophia introduced me to Karat, a spirit drawn to the fraction soul she sensed in me. It was through Sophia that I communicated with Karat. Our exchanges a similarity of secrets and binding emotions. Sophia's voice guided me through the ritual and left me trembling in her blood eyes, her words smoothing against the fear that gripped me. The world around me grew dim as the spirit realm Sophia had opened the door to seem to swing open the rest of the way by itself. I began to sense another presence in the room, a presence that seemed to speed into the inner workings of my mind. I began to receive messages from Karat, scorching my mind, as if from nowhere but everywhere, messages that echoed with a haunting hangover lasting days. She spoke of my fears, my desires, and the darkness corners of my soul that I had been too afraid to confront. This went on for 3 months and 6 days. Our love triangle, as we spiritually intertwined on a deeper level that I knew was available to someone like me. Then Sophia stopped responding to my messages. Panic clawed at my chest as I typed message after message, each keystroke punctured by a growing sense of dread. I stared at my screen, my heart racing, my mind spinning with 1,000 possibilities. What had happened to Sophia? How could I survive even a day without her? I twisted and turned around this makeshift house, suddenly aware of how small my world had become. Sophia was my connection to Karat, and they were the only things in my life I had left. As the days stretched on, the emptiness of Sophia's absence growled at me. I felt as if the air had been taken from my life, and each breath would be pain until she was back. When her name popped up on my phone, I was so relieved I cried out until I opened it. The words danced before my eyes. It wasn't from Sophia at all. It claimed that Sophia had crossed over to the realm of the dead, leaving behind a world of pain and suffering, that she had found solace in the eternal plane, and she wanted me to join her. The message was sent from Karat. Terror gripped me, and I could not move, could not breathe, could not think or feel or even believe. My Sophia, my beautiful Sophia, promised to release and understanding were seductive, but they were even surrounded in darkness as I realized that I had been scouring down a path that I could no longer control. The line between reality and this dark, twisted world had become so thin. It had stopped existing. I looked around at my dilapidated house where I had resigned alone and without company, and knew she was what I needed. I'd do whatever had to be done. Karat explained how it worked. The items to be gathered, which herbs to burn, and which to crush. What to say, and how to get to the right vein for a blood sacrifice. It was not an easy journey, but one I had to take. I needled it into the middle of my circle, staged the lavender burning while the kettle in the middle of my circle, sage and lavender burning while the bowl is still warm. Blood was rise above my head, and I chanted, and I chanted the words. I chanted again. I waited as long as my arms would hold, and I chanted again, louder. The bowl clattered to the floor as my arms gave out. The blood pulling below me as if trying to re-enter the wounds of my wrists. It didn't work. In the middle of my Tulum came similar sirens and flashing blue lights. I remember sobbing when the police took me in their car, wrapping up my injuries until my mom ripped me from the hospital bed and into her desperate gasp. Once I finally had the ability to move my body, I realized I did not want to. I fell into my mother's shoulders with all my weight and cried with the aggress of someone who had suppressed it all for far too long. Within a week, I began to see the truth that had been secured by the web of delusion. The stories of Sophia and Kyra slowly came undone. The web I had spun was a twisted reflection of my own pain, a manifestation of my desperate need for validation and belonging, returning to the quote-unquote home I was building to find a dilapidated wreck that barely had four walls, and no matter how hard I looked, there was no evidence of a single message, phone call, or even person called Sophia in my phone. There was no SIM card in this phone at all, other than the one that was there when I stole it. I still don't know what happened in that time. As time passed, the memory of Sophia and Kyra faded like a nightmare upon waking. Looking back, I often wonder if Sophia and Kyra were manifestations of my own inner demons, a twisted, copywriting mechanic that was spun out of control. Or perhaps they were a cautionary tale and a reminder of dangers of seeking validation and connection in the wrong places, no matter the reason. After all my searching, I'm finally free.